It's time for a Sacramento Kings season preview. Michael Bolton.
Thanks, Josh. It's Michael Bolton here, and it's time for another episode of the Locked On Fantasy Basketball Podcast. Let's get to it.
Let's get to it, indeed.
You are Locked On Fantasy, your daily NBA fantasy podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to the Locked On Fantasy Basketball Podcast, brought to you by Basketball Monster. My name is Josh Lloyd, and it was the blurst of times. I'm also the lead fantasy analyst at basketballmonster.com, and you can find me on Twitter, as always, at redrock_bball, on TikTok at redrock_bball, and on Instagram at LockedOnFantasyBasketball. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LockedOnNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game Time. Thank you also for making Locked On Fantasy Basketball your first listen every day. We are free. We are available on all platforms. So give it a thumb up, give it a double bang, leave a comment. There was a comment yesterday on the show that said, Josh, if you double bang, it ends up unsubscribing. That's not what a double bang is. Let's clarify. A double bang is when you watch the video and then you just play the audio as well. So you're banging on both ends. That's what it is. So that's how we double bang. Just shouting that out to that bloke there who asked the question. We're here to talk Sacramento Kings. So, well, what are we waiting for? So once again, to talk about the Sacramento Kings, we bring in the one and only. There's no one else we could bring in. John Fisher's right-hand man. It is Matt George. Welcome to the show. When you're not busy relocating Major League Baseball franchises, Matt, you do cover the Sacramento Kings, so it's good to have you here. Take some time away from your busy side hustle.
You know, you warned me about the joke, and I'm still disgusted. John Fisher's right-hand man. I would rather be dead. I would honestly rather be dead than ever work with that man. Unfortunately, he's becoming a part of this city, but that's okay because Sacramento Kings still dominate this city. The A's are just renting or sleeping on the couch. How about that? They're couch surfing right now, so they can hang out here for a while.
They're coming in. It's going to be exciting for that little bit of time they're there. But like I warned you. I warned you that you would hate the joke. Even you said fire away, just drop the jokes. I told you you'd hate it. Anyway, we're here to talk Sacramento Kings, a team that obviously is in a better spot than where they were 2-3 years ago. They've made a change here this offseason after a somewhat flattening or disappointing season last season. They're looking to get back to those, not even winning ways, but back to those like we're pushing into the playoffs, and we're trying to make some noise. How that works, that obviously remains to be seen, Matt, because they're making these moves. They bring in the big move of DeMar DeRozan comes in. We will just have a look at the guys they did bring in across the offseason in free agency. And it is headlined by DeMar DeRozan. They picked Devin Carter in the draft. A trade with the Raptors to get Jalen McDaniels. They signed Jordan McLaughlin. Isaiah Crawford comes in on a two-way. Orlando Robinson was also brought in as well for some center depth, but the big story, of course, or the big addition on this squad was DeMar DeRozan. He is someone that you have highlighted as the biggest addition to this team, rightfully so. So let's talk about DeRozan, the Kings' pursuit of him. How early on in the process, because obviously for the second time in DeMar DeRozan's free agency career, he was sort of left sitting there without a chair to sit on for a while, and he comes in here. Were the Kings interested in this early, or they just saw something develop and they went, okay, well, maybe we should get in on this?
Yeah, it was not on my radar right away. It was on a few people's radar here in Sacramento, but not enough to really run headfirst with it. I think the idea was the Sacramento Kings were always interested and infatuated with the idea of DeMar DeRozan because he was an achievable target that they could get without having to back up the truck of assets, right? The Lowry Markkanen sweepstakes, that would cost the Kings an unbelievable deal. We're talking like 3 first-round picks plus pick swaps and players. Like, we're talking a massive package for Lowry Markkanen, and the Kings weren't willing to play the game with Danny Ainge essentially in Utah. There was the Brandon Ingram situation in sweepstakes too. I don't really feel that had a lot of legs to begin with, because once again, that was going to be another package that the Sacramento Kings would have to include probably multiple first-round picks. The Pelicans would do what the Jazz were going to do, and every team probably should do with any kind of major Kings trade conversation, which is ask for Keegan Murray. And the Sacramento Kings don't want to make Keegan Murray available in any kind of deal like this. So I think the DeMar DeRozan was always quietly there as an ideal target or an ideal circumstance for Sacramento this offseason. But there was always a question of, okay, he wants to come back west. He wants to come back to California. but he's an LA guy. He's a SoCal guy. So I don't know if there was ever like a full belief in Sacramento that the Kings could compete with the Clippers in the brand new Intuit Dome, or the Los Angeles Lakers being the Lakers, to be able to attract him. So early on, the Kings had interest. There were some conversations. Sound like it went quiet for a while. That was during the time of the Ingram sweepstakes and the Kuzma sweepstakes and the Markkanen sweepstakes. And then all of a sudden, things caught fire really, really quickly. And over the course of a week, we went from resuming conversations to meetings being had to DeMar signing a contract and walking out in front of the crowd during the California Classic at the Golden One Center. So it was a ramp up process. It was a fun journey. And I think look, this doesn't happen in Sacramento. Like signings like this do not happen. I consider it a free agency signing. Some people want to put the caveat, it's not a free agency signing because it was a sign and trade situation. You still have to convince the player to sign the contract with you. So you still have to negotiate with the player and get their okay to make this happen. So that constitutes a free agency signing, in my opinion. And again, in Sacramento, signing a 6-time All-Star. I don't care about his age, because if you look at his numbers, and we can dive into this too if you want to, his numbers don't indicate age is going to have that significant of an impact on the way that he's played. He's been consistent throughout his career and gotten better as he's gotten into his 30s, truth be told. I mean, you look at everything that he brings to the table. Sacramento has not been able to attract players of this caliber really ever. Like Vlade Divac was the best free agency signing they ever had. Now, fantastic player, but not to the level of a DeMar DeRozan with the accolades and the success and things of that nature. So it was a roller coaster of a circumstance, but DeMar's a king, and there's a lot of excitement about it here in NorCal.
You're right that it is, a sign and trade is a free agent signing, because it's, you're not executing a trade, you're not forcing the player against his will to come to the team. They have to sign that contract to come to the team. They have to agree to that. So you are 100% correct on that. Now, the big question is going to be, with DeRozan joining this team, he played 1 million minutes last year, 38 a game. We all know that things can build up. You get more prone to injury as you get older. Whatever, leave that part aside. But I think the question people are going to have is, okay, so how does it work? How does he fit alongside two All-NBA, All-Star level players, De'Aaron Fox on one side, Domantas Sabonis on the other, both guys who have the ball in their hands a lot? Not that Sabonis is a high usage, high field goal attempt player necessarily, but he runs a lot of the offense. De'Aaron Fox is the point guard. He runs a lot of the offense. DeMar DeRozan was running all of the offense basically in Chicago as well. So we see this time and time again, that there are two established players, that the high pedigree players on a team, a third one joins, and usually whoever is designated as the third one takes a step back. Bradley Beal saw like a 6-7% usage drop last season in Phoenix. That is the usual way that things go. So how does that hierarchy work? You've got the two established Kings legends here on this team. DeRozan comes in. Does he take a usage step back, a playmaking step back? How do you envisage all that working?
Yeah, I mean, from the fantasy perspective, and you're the expert certainly with this, but not mine, but I would expect a drop-off. Like, I would expect DeMar DeRozan to not have the same... Like, he was the guy in Chicago. He was the guy in San Antonio. He does not have to be the guy here in Sacramento. Now, some people believe that's a negative. I think that's abundantly positive. And a lot of people immediately point to the shooting and the spacing, and they have questions, right? De'Aaron Fox has developed into this three-point shooter to where he was shooting 37% from three-point range last year on a super high volume. So De'Aaron Fox has added a three-point shot to his game. There's no debating now. De'Aaron can shoot the three and shoot the three at a high clip with the success that defenses have to respect. So gone are the days of when Fox came into the league of, can you be a successful star point guard without a three-point shot? Those days are gone. Domantas Sabonis actually has a good three-point shooting percentage. He just doesn't shoot the damn ball, and I don't know why. And we need the King. I would love for the Kings to continue to encourage him to shoot more, especially with that mid-range jumper that he gets a lot of and still is hesitant to take, and that's been a major topic of conversation around him. But the mid-range jumper is actually what I want to focus on here, because I had a conversation with an assistant coach in the NBA, an assistant coach who had worked with and coached with DeMar before. And this coach essentially told me he thinks that not only does DeMar DeRozan solve a lot of the problems offensively that the Kings had last season, he thinks DeMar DeRozan addresses the primary weakness of the Kings offense from 2 seasons ago when they were the #1 offense in the league. That was a year where it was De'Aaron Fox essentially attacking the basket, DHOs through Domantas Sabonis, which the Sacramento Kings are going to continue to do, and everybody else steps down on the floor and chucks up threes. That's kind of been the offensive identity for the Kings over the last 2 years. And it's gotten them decently far. It got them back to the playoffs. They took a step back offensively last year with the focus on defense. I think the indication from this offseason, the moves that they're making, is a clear indication that they're going to hopefully refocus on the offense, and the offense needs to carry them as far as they're going to go. But DeMar DeRozan, before DeMar, De'Aaron Fox is the only mid-range threat that the Sacramento Kings had, like, period. And what would happen was the Kings would try and run their DHO sets. When those sets would break down, right, when it didn't get them a good look or defenses adjusted, defenses got physical. This is what the Golden State Warriors did really well. Suddenly there's 5, 6, 7 seconds left on the shot clock, and it's De'Aaron Fox, and that's it. They even tried to use Harrison Barnes in those spots a lot, right? It was like, oh, God, we have 5, 6 seconds left. De'Aaron's in the corner with the double team. All right, let's post up Harrison Barnes and try and get us a bucket. So the Kings need another guy, not just late in the game. We know how good of a clutch scorer that DeMar DeRozan is in big moments in the fourth quarter, but just late in a possession, late in a shot clock. The Kings adding another reliable guy that can just straight up go out and get them a bucket. That's what they were hoping Keegan Murray could turn into last season. He made some strides, but you're asking for a lot from now a third-year player on a team that has aspirations not just to get back to the playoffs, but win a playoff series and put themselves in a position where they feel they can use their remaining assets to go all in on a championship run with contracts coming up and things of that nature. So I think DeMar DeRozan's fit isn't, spacing concern, or he has to suddenly become a three-point shooter. It's now, DeMar, you doing what you do best gives the Sacramento Kings another option offensively that they just didn't have. And that's going to be, I think, a big difference maker.
Yeah, look, you talk about leaning into the offense. I think they basically have to. We're going to address the defensive stuff later on in the show, but I think that's obviously what made them successful 2 years ago, and they did move away a little bit from that. But I do expect that everyone's going to take somewhat of a hit, and DeRozan is going to have to take some sort of a step back because you just can't. These three guys just can't do the same things that they did last season now that they're all on the same team. We're going to talk about the guys that left the team and some projected lineups in a second. But today's episode is brought to you by the Game Time app. Game Time's just rolling out new features every 5 minutes. It feels like they've got a new thing now, Game Time Picks, where instead of you having to sort through all of the different versions, all of the different options of tickets, they just find the best values and they just put them in front of you. So you don't have to go through and go, well, is this one good? Is this one good? Is this one? No, don't worry about it. It's all there right at the top of the list of whatever ticket you're looking for. Maybe you are looking to check out some baseball games or some concerts or some musicals or theater or upcoming football preseason games, whatever it is. Game Time is going to have that for you. They've also got the flash deal, so something that's happening right now. As we get closer to game time, prices go down and they chuck that notification towards you on the phone. You've got the all-in pricing that you can turn on in the app as well, so you see the full price right there without having to worry about what gets added at checkout. Game Time is always innovating and always bringing new things to the ticket game. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time and download the Game Time app, create an account, and use that code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create the account, redeem the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? It is game time. In terms of the guys that left, most of those guys leaving, Matt, were the players that left in the DeMar DeRozan trade. So Harrison Barnes is out. Chris Duarte, who was here for some reason, he's out. Sasha Vezenkov wanted to go home, and he's gone home. Davion Mitchell's out. JaVale McGee hasn't returned, but there's no one there that's a gigantic loss there. I guess for me, the biggest loss could end up being that first-round pick swap that they gave up in the DeMar DeRozan deal, but that's for 2030. Matt George to worry about because that's not happening until we get to that. But let's just move now, I think, into talking about the projected starters on this team, and I think it's relatively straightforward apart from one spot. We know that De'Aaron Fox is going to start. We know DeMar DeRozan is going to start. We know Sabonis is going to start. We know Keegan Murray is going to start. Last season, Kevin Huerter started, and then he didn't. And then Keon Ellis started, and he was starting through the end of the season. And he provided a much different look on this squad. With first of all, he was a two-way guy, then took over from Davion Mitchell as a point guard, then was able to play off-ball as a starter with really incredible defensive stuff most of the time. Some really strong rim protection as a guard. But you do think they might go back to Kevin Huerter in this spot? I would say that's fine. I actually think it might be Ellis, but I'm also not in Sacramento. But I also don't know that it matters that much because there's Ellis, there's Huerter, and there's Malik Monk, who aren't going to really allow anyone to be playing this big 33, 34-minute-a-night role in that position.
Yeah, this is going to be the main storyline and the main talking point in training camp and in preseason. And now I have my belief of who should start, and that belief is Malik Monk. And this is going to be something that we cover heavily on Locked On Kings. I've been sitting on it for a while. Truth be told, I could talk about it and rant about it for a month, but I think we'll wait until training camp starts to pick up to dive into it. I'm of the belief that Malik Monk should start. Just put your best foot out there. Malik Monk is clearly one of your best players, and Mike Brown already runs a staggered rotation to where pretty much two of the Fox, Sabonis, Keegan Murray, now with the addition of DeMar DeRozan, like two of those four guys will be on the floor minimum at all times. One of Fox or Sabonis will be on the floor at all times. The fact that De'Aaron Fox is the best player on this Kings team, and he's the first guy that Mike Brown subs out every single game because of his rotation, suggests, yeah, if you're concerned about not having Malik Monk with the second unit, okay, just start Malik Monk and continue to play him with the second unit when you bring Fox out of the game early on. So I'm of the belief Malik Monk should start, but Mike Brown has given zero indications. In fact, every indication he's shown has been towards Malik continuing with that bench role, that six-man role, because the Kings value it so highly. Now, Malik has said, when we talked to Malik after he signed his contract with the Kings to return, Malik said he's bringing his voice into training camp. He says he'll do what the team needs from him, but if he feels he should start and needs to start for this team, he's going to voice it and he's going to speak up. So we'll have to see how that plays out. The Kevin Huerter, Keon Ellis thing is very interesting because the Kings fully committed to Keon as a starter when they had to, after Kevin Huerter injured his shoulder towards the end of last season. Then Malik Monk got injured too on top of that, thanks Luka Doncic, and then everything played out the way that it played. So Keon got these unbelievable opportunities with injuries. Like De'Aaron Fox was injured early in the year, so Keon started. It was an in-season tournament game, and the Kings beat the Oklahoma City Thunder without De'Aaron Fox. We're like, what is going on? I think Keon Ellis was like 6 or 7 or 8-0 as a starter for a while before he finally lost his first game. So he roared out onto the scene, and he gave the Sacramento Kings, like you talked about, kind of a defensive utility piece that also was more of a perimeter threat than Davion Mitchell, and he's also not 6 feet tall. So the extra height made a difference. The extra wingspan made a difference for Keon. So I think it's truly going to be a three-way battle in training camp. If any three of them you could choose, and I wouldn't be surprised. Actually, that's a lie. If the Kings ended up going with Malik Monk, the guy I want, I truly would be surprised by that. But you could pick Keon, you could pick Kevin. The big difference between the two, which is I think it's praise for Keon Ellis, but it actually might work against him, is I think Keon can play the same way and be just as effective regardless of where he plays in the rotation. I don't know how well Kevin Huerter will work off of the bench as just a flamethrower perimeter three-point shooter. Like we haven't really seen that. We don't really know what that looks like. So that's why I lean more towards, I think Kevin Huerter will probably continue to be the starter, but it's a wide open battle in camp.
We have seen this from Mike Brown for the last 2 seasons, that like he will have no problem, like especially with the not established stars. So I'm talking Sabonis, Fox, and now it's going to be DeRozan. That like if you start out and you miss your first 3 shots, we'll see you later. You're not coming back in for a very long time. And if you hit your first 6 shots, well, you're going to play 38 minutes. Like he will. So if Kevin Huerter starts and he goes 0 of 2 in the first quarter, we might not see him until the fourth quarter. Like he will have no problem in mixing and matching that stuff around. He did it with Keegan Murray. He's done it with Murray, with Huerter in the past. He's done it with Harrison Barnes in the past. He's done it with so many of these guys. Like you're not feeling it. I'll see you later. We've got someone else to bring in, and they've always had that other option that they can chuck in there, and they do have those other options here in this group. In terms of the bench group that you think that they will run with, Matt, we're looking at Alice and Monk, Trey Lyles, Devin Carter, and Alex Len. I will just use this maybe as a transition to just go and talk about Devin Carter there, because we've spoken about most of those other guys already, because Carter obviously was their lottery pick. We didn't get to see him play in Summer League due to an injury. Where are we at with him and his injury at the moment?
Yeah, so the timeline that we got was 6 months initially, and that would put him for a return. And of course, it's not a return date. It's like a reevaluation. That's the term that they use in the NBA. So reevaluated around early to mid-January, I think. So right, closing in on the true, not the all-star break halfway point, the true halfway point, like game 41 or game 42 of the season. So that's the expectation, is kind of around there. But look, as a rookie on a team that is quote unquote loaded, as the Sacramento Kings believe that they are, and with the aspirations to not just make it back to the play. I mean, that's the bare minimum expectation, is to make it back to the playoffs at this point. Anything less is catastrophic failure, and there might be jobs on the line at that point. But the Kings making it back to the playoffs and then actually winning a playoff series, asking a rookie. I mean, they asked Keegan Murray to do it 2 seasons ago, and Keegan Murray excelled, but he was a 4th overall pick, right? And so expecting a lot from Devin Carter, I think, is silly. Now, I do look at Devin Carter almost as maybe a reinforcement, in the sense that what he naturally brings into the NBA is the wingspan that he has, the nose for the ball. He's a phenomenal rebounder for a guard, very athletic, very aggressive. I call him almost like a Tasmanian devil. Like you talked about Mike Brown's willingness to just look at his bench and point to a guy and go, I need you to give me something. That might be Devin Carter's role for his rookie season. Hey, when you come back from injury, you're sitting there on the bench most nights, but if I need 5 minutes of you just to go harass the opposing team's guard or help us on the glass or space the floor a little bit, go in, kid, show me what you can do. It's almost simple. It's a very simplified role. Unfortunately, Devin Carter, as a guard, as someone who's probably going to get minutes as point guard, to miss out on your first training camp, that's the most significant practice time that you have, period. As you know, Josh, during the course of an NBA season, there's really not a lot of practice time, period. And Mike Brown is typically the coach that practices more than anybody. He has a reputation for practicing more than anybody does. So being a point guard rookie and missing out on that training camp time, he'll still be there, but he won't be able to work with the team like you're supposed to. It's going to put him behind the 8 ball a little bit. So I think there aren't really too many expectations at all for his impact on this team.
You called him a Tasmanian devil. You ever seen a Tasmanian devil, Matt?
No, I've seen the cartoon from Looney Tunes.
Do you know how big they are?
No, are they tiny?
They're like, I think they weigh about like 16, 17 pounds. They're like, like the size of
he's a bit bigger than that.
Like the size of a chihuahua. They're tiny. They got the sharp teeth. They're not particularly big. I'm looking here just to get the exact weight. The females can go up to 20 pounds. The males up to like 20 or 30 pounds. There you go. That's for the big ones. They're pretty small.
He's a hybrid Tasmanian devil with a 6'9" wingspan. All right, he's a 6'1" guard with a 6'9" wingspan. Let's just focus on that part. That's ridiculous.
Well, there you go. You can bring your Tasmanian devil facts now to all the everydayers over on Locked On Kings. We're going to talk about some make or break players and players to watch for the upcoming season now as well. But before we get into doing that, today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. We have been talking about FanDuel for years now because they're awesome. They're America's #1 sportsbook. They've got a different sort of offer for people right now, all the way through to September the 22nd. All FanDuel customers just have to bet $5, and then you get access to a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. And then with your YouTube TV base plan, you're able to watch every regular season Sunday afternoon out-of-market NFL game for those 3 weeks. All you need is the Google account, you need a valid form of payment, and then you can also go in and cancel at any time as well. But why would you when you got a 3-week trial? So you can go check out all that NFL Sunday Ticket has to offer through YouTube TV thanks to FanDuel. So go to FanDuel.com/LockedOn to download America's #1 sportsbook, and don't forget to gamble responsibly. Matt, in terms of, as I put the Devin Carter graphic up, which I didn't mean to do, we're not talking Devin Carter here. You think I'd get this right by now, doing a million of these shows. That's okay. We're talking about the player to watch. Which at this point, I think it is important to focus on Keegan Murray because he is obviously had a really strong rookie season in a low usage role. I thought he improved significantly defensively last season, and we head into year 3 now, which is the year that many young players really are able to spread their wings and start to do more. We had for him last season, he went up to 18% usage. He shot only 36% on 3, which is well down on his rookie numbers, largely because the volume had to go up, which is a common thing. I worry a little bit here with Keegan. You said he's a player to watch, and we're going to see what happens, that there is no real room here for him to expand the game. Adding DeRozan in, like last season, we talked about, okay, how does he jump into the next level when Barnes and Herter and Fox and Sabonis, we're going to see how they prioritize those guys. He took somewhat of a step forward, still didn't get to league average usage, and now he is very, very clearly the 4th offensive option. And when Malik Monk joins the closers, he is, I would say, a relative afterthought offensively. Am I off the mark with any of that stuff?
I think afterthought might be a bit harsh, but look, I think Offensively, things are re-simplified for Keegan.
Yep.
Going into last season, Monty McNair, the Kings general manager, was doing interviews with The Athletic, and he was saying in The Athletic, like, we're looking for a big jump from Keegan offensively, right? They were looking for Keegan to show more of his ability as a 3-level scorer and someone that could create his own shot. Again, they were looking for someone to bring to the team what DeMar DeRozan is now bringing. It's not that the Kings have given up on Keegan and like, we got to go with DeMar because Keegan ain't cutting it. It's just you're asking for a lot and the Kings don't really have time to wait for guys right now. They're not in a developmental mode. So they know that Keegan can do offensively is absolutely light things up from the perimeter. So that is going to be his responsibility. You're going to still see him play a lot of the DHO game with Domantas Sabonis. He's going to be the guy in the corner or on the wing to help bail Fox out or Sabonis out or DeRozan out when he attacks the basket, draws in 2 or 3 defenders at times. Like, that's going to be Keegan's role offensively. So it's re-simplified to something he was effective at as a rookie. Now, to me, Josh, one of the big jumps that I need to see from Keegan this season, this is a jump that I need to see from the Kings as a whole when it comes to Keegan Murray. When Keegan is on, keep feeding him the damn ball, because this has been an issue with Sacramento for a while, where we saw it in the playoffs. We saw it multiple times last season. Keegan will start a game red hot, and then they just go away from him. And the question is, are the Sacramento Kings intentionally doing that because they got to feed Fox? They got to feed these other guys. Now you have another mouth to feed in DeMar DeRozan. Is that the problem? Or is it Keegan's not opening his mouth? Keegan's not being assertive and going, I'm on it. I'm on one. Feed me. Get me the ball. So that's going to be, I think, another area of growth that the Kings are looking for. Plus, I do believe that getting to work with DeMar DeRozan every single day is going to be a big difference maker for Keegan and his ability to develop more of a comfort at the mid-range and an ability to score and shoot off the dribble, which is what the Kings would like for him to add to his game more. I think that's a positive there. Defensively, this is the big thing for Keegan this year, right? Because Harrison Barnes was not a great defender. No. He wasn't. But Harrison Barnes was the guy. He wasn't, most of the time, he wasn't even a good defender, if we're being honest. And I like HB a lot. Harrison was the guy that when you played the Lakers, he's guarding LeBron.
Yeah.
Harrison was the guy when you played the Suns, he's guarding Durant. That's Keegan's job now. So Keegan's going to need to continue to space the floor, knock down those threes, hopefully catch fire and have another 45-point game like he did last season. That would be fantastic. But Keegan is going to have a lot fall on his shoulders of he is typically not just going to be guarding the opposing team's best wing. More often than not, as you know, with how talented the wings are in this league, he's going to be guarding the opposing team's best player, period, because he also showed an ability to switch and guard guards as well. He spent some time guarding Steph Curry last season too. So Keegan has the biggest responsibility on defense in the entire team. The biggest responsibility in his third year. And they also need input from him offensively. So I think if you're looking at defensive focus, Keegan's going to be tested this year for sure.
Yeah, look, he has to, because again, if you're starting Herter, Fox, DeRozan, Sabonis, well, those guys aren't very good defenders as a general group, and he would be the best defender there. And you can talk about Barnes going onto those guys, whether Barnes is a good defender or not. You're using him in that sort of sacrificial position. Like, you go there and you sacrifice and you take something off the top of these guys and let the other guys like Keegan do some work, where now Keegan's got to be able to do that, plus the old role that he was doing. And what did happen with him last season is his usage went up, but his overall efficiency went down. And if you look at the metric on Basketball Reference, the true shooting points added as a rookie, he was 25.5 above league average. Last season, he was 22.3 below league average, because he took more shots, but because his efficiency went down, he actually became a below average efficiency player, which I think that can flip back around, but also that means he's going to have to take fewer shots offensively. And again, you look at the way the team is set up. If they're going to focus more offensively and DeRozan's there, he's not going to be as used offensively, even if he's playing, those 34 minutes or so. So there's going to be the usual thing of a third-year breakout type player is going to be really hard for him to take those numbers and really ramp them up. Even if he might become an actual better player on court, it doesn't mean necessarily, Matt, that his numbers are going to jump up, because you got to find a way for that to happen, and that's just not really realistic at this point. What I do want to quiz you on now is, we talk about make or break players, and the guy that you put down as the make or break, I don't want to hear your rationale for this, because your make or break can mean whatever it means to whoever. You've put De'Aaron Fox as the guy here. So De'Aaron Fox has had two really sort of, I want to say, weird seasons, right? 2 years ago, he became the best finisher at the rim that we've seen since basically prime Shaq. He was like 75% or something finish at the rim, which, okay, this number is very weird. Then he started out last season shooting like prime Steph Curry from three. Okay, this is going to cool down. It did. It dropped down towards the second half of the season. And then he also started generating steals like he was OG Anunoby and getting 2 a game. Like all these random outlier things, which he hasn't really been able to stack together. So like he was this elite rim finisher, and then last season, it went back to normal. He started out elite three-point shooting. It went back to solidly average. The steals, he's never been that high, but he bumped up last season. He hasn't sort of been able to stack these single-season outlier improvements together. How do you see, like, when you talk make or break for him, like, what does that mean? Like, the Kings would look at a different direction. He needs to, like, maybe take a step back for other players. Like, what do you mean by that for De'Aaron Fox this season?
Yeah, I'm excited to dive into this and break this down with you, Josh. I'll even add another layer to what you were talking about, too. 2 seasons ago, when he won Clutch Player of the Year, he was an absolute dominant force from mid-range. He that pull-up mid-range jumper, that elbow jumper, it was unguardable because players had to back off of him. He'd just step in and hit that shot, or if they played up tight, he'd step by you and pull up and hit that shot. And he went away from that shot more last season as the higher volume of threes came out there. So that's another kind of element to what you were talking about. But look, this is not technically a contract year for De'Aaron Fox, but this is the first year that he's eligible for a Supermax extension. How does he get it? He does what he did 2 years ago. He makes an All-NBA team. But here's what he doesn't have going for him anymore. He made All-NBA 2 years ago. He deserved it, and I'm not trying to take anything away from him at all. I'm being realistic here. He made it because the Kings were such a surprise story, and the Kings almost swept awards that year. Executive of the Year, Coach of the Year, first ever unanimous Coach of the Year, both Sabonis and Fox, All-Stars, All-NBA players, right? Like they swept awards simply because the Kings went from obscurity to sensational seemingly overnight. Fox was a major part of that. So Fox has already turned down 2 contract extensions with the Sacramento Kings, not because he doesn't want to be here, not because he's concerned at all with Sacramento. I want to make sure that's understood. It's because that Supermax is right there. And again, for him to get it, he has to do something he's already done before. But in my opinion, Josh, the way he gets that award, team success is not going to be enough because it's already happened before, and you just added DeMar DeRozan. So other guys are going to get credit for that maybe should primarily go to you. Scoring itself is not going to get there because we've seen De'Aaron put up good numbers. And if the Kings miss the playoffs, but De'Aaron Fox is averaging 30-plus points per game, he's not going to make an All-NBA team because the Kings missed the playoffs again with an even better team with the addition of DeMar DeRozan, right? It has to be a combination of the both. De'Aaron started last season averaging over 30 points per game and scoring amongst the best in the league. He was up there with Luka. He was up there with Steph. He was up there with Embiid. He needs to be able to do that for a full season to make an All-NBA team. And it doesn't have to be first team. It doesn't have to be second team. But to be an All-NBA guard again, Fox has to show that he is the Jalen Brunson. He is the Shai Gilgeous-Alexander of the Sacramento Kings. The defense and the steals, fantastic. The rebounding and assists, if he can continue to add that, fantastic. De'Aaron has to simply score the basketball. So again, I'll turn the fantasy aspect over to your expertise for your audience. But if I were considering drafting De'Aaron Fox, I would keep in mind that Fox is hunting for All-NBA this year, and he, as well as everybody else, knows that scoring is going to be his ticket to that. So I expect to see another level of De'Aaron Fox offensively throughout this season, maybe even higher volume of shots, a get behind me, DeMar, get behind me, DeMontis. This is my year. I got to do this. It's a very selfish ambition, but I also think they go hand in hand, right? If Fox is leading or one of the top leaders in scoring in the NBA, the Sacramento Kings are probably doing a really, really good job or a really good basketball team. So it's a make or break year for him, in my opinion, because he's got a massive payday potentially on the table if he delivers.
This is what I'll say about him from a fantasy perspective is that we can't trust a lot of the things that he does. He shoots 70% from the line or he shoots 77%. Like he shot 35% from 3 after the All-Star break, but then his free throws went to 83. And he was at 71 before that. Like every number is just all over the place at all points. Like, are you a good 3-point shooter now? Oh, maybe you're not. Can you hit your free throws? I guess you figured it out last year. Guess not. Or maybe you have again. Like, it's all over the place. Like, we know he's going to have the ball, right? We know he's going to have good usage, but like, Now there's the DeRozan factor. What about the assist numbers? Because he's not this traditional double-digit assist player the way that Trae Young and Tyrese Halliburton and James Harden, who are going to probably lead the league in assists. Like, he's not getting 9, 10 assists a game, or maybe out of nowhere he just starts doing that. Like, he's shown this ability to chuck random stats in that he's shown no sort of focus on in previous years, and then they fall back down. So, like, there's just been for as good as he's been consistently good. It's consistently good with a bunch of inconsistencies all the way through. So that's what we need to see how that works. And you're right, like, he has got these incentives to do that. But, like, yeah, I do think that the team winning stuff, he doesn't strike me as a guy, although he doesn't strike me as a guy that's going to be, like, just entirely focused on his own numbers. But there have been instances in the past of things of him being a little bit surly with maybe the directions and maybe the Tyrese Halliburton stuff. And there's been some of those things. I think there's a bit just to watch with how that goes on. And again, he's just going to chuck out something that's unbelievable and something that, like, inexplicably falls off, and then it changes halfway through. That has been the pattern. And I don't know what it's going to be this year, but, like, maybe it is that he starts averaging 9 assists per game for the first 3 months of the season, and then that changes. There's just so many different ways that his game can go, and he's got the ability to do all these things. We just need to see it all get put together.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be selfish. It just has to be what's best for the team. And again, like, the way you watch Jalen Brunson and how he plays in New York and how he played during the playoffs, what Shai Gilgeous-Alexander has become for the Oklahoma City Thunder, that's what Fox has to become. And to put kind of a bow on this entire thing, Fox just has to be undeniable. If he's going to get that Supermax contract, there can't be like you're talking about, we don't know about this, we don't know about that, or can he be the guy, or is this Sabonis' team, or is this DeMar's team? Like, it can't be. The same way we know, hey, look, the New York Knicks roster is stacked, but that's Jalen Brunson's team. OKC is stacked. That's Shai Gilgeous-Alexander's team. Some can say that with confidence in Sacramento, but not the entire NBA world, right? Not the average fan doesn't necessarily know that yet because they see Sabonis winning all NBA and Fox not. So that's what Fox needs to be undeniably one of the best players in the league. If he does that, I think the Sacramento Kings are also maybe a 50-win team and a playoff team.
I remember when I came on your show last year, Matt, before the season, I referenced Sabonis as the Kings' second best player, and your fans got on me. Man, he's no way he's their second best player. He's an all-NBA guy. He's their best guy. So, like, you're right. There is uncertainty at times as to who is the best player in this team, and I agree with you that it is De'Aaron Fox, but, like, there'll be plenty of people who suggest that it isn't, that it is Domantas Sabonis, and that's whatever your opinion is, like, the fact that it's not clear-cut is something that I think we all can agree on, that it's not a clear-cut scenario. Let's take a look at the burning question for this season, Matt. It does, again, go back to the DeMar DeRozan situation you've already talked about, bringing in DeRozan and focusing on offense. How on earth do you craft a defense that works with DeRozan and with Sabonis out there, that one's at the 5, one's at the 3? How do you do it? Like, there'll be people who tell you that De'Aaron Fox is an awesome defender because he got steals. I don't think that is true. I think he's an okay defender. I wouldn't say that he's awesome. I wouldn't say that he's terrible. But having these two, who you could argue, you could easily make an argument, I don't know that it's true, that they are the worst starters at their particular positions defensively. You could make that argument. Like, how do you do anything? Or you just say, screw it, we're going 130, 125 every game.
Yeah, well, first off, what you just said right there is completely against the Mike Brown ideology. He's completely against that. He has zero interest in being Mike D'Antoni. He said repeatedly, like, you can lead the league in scoring, go into the playoffs, and flame out every year if that's who you want to be, but you're not going to win. You're not even going to sniff a championship if you can't play defense. So that is the philosophy of your head coach. The Kings just re-up that head coach. That ain't changing, right? Mike Brown's not going to walk into training camp day one and just take all of his defensive paperwork and throw it in a trash can. Just say, forget this. We're scoring 1 million points a night. Your burning question has another burning question. Mm-hmm. And this is the part about the defense that actually concerns me more than what this roster is capable of. Because once again, this roster is a very offensively focused roster. Sacramento made tremendous strides defensively last season, towards the end of last season. But what Mike Brown and De'Aaron Fox have both publicly pointed to, and they're not saying that they didn't get better defensively, they're also saying the games were officiated differently. Well, the second half of the season, referees allowed more physicality, and the Kings actually enjoyed that. The Kings, one of the biggest areas of growth from start to finish last season was how the Kings handled physicality. Beginning of the year, with the exception of Domantas Sabonis, they didn't like getting bumped. End of the year, they were the guys doing the bumping. Like they enjoyed the physical element, and that really had a lot of benefits to them. But what does that mean? That's an uncontrollable variable, right? If you go into next season and the referees go back to blowing the whistle every 10 seconds and we have 130 to 120 every single night, does that mean that you're just not going to be a good defensive team anymore? So that's the biggest question mark to me with the Kings defense, Josh, is look, this defense is only going to be good by committee. Like Fox is going to have to be the best guard defender the Kings have. Keegan Murray is going to have to be the best wing defender the Kings have. And Domantas Sabonis just has to keep leading the league in defensive rebounds, which means you end the defensive possession by getting possession. Like that is Domantas Sabonis' role. He's also a big body down low, but he's not a rim protector. He's not going to change a lot of shots at the rim. But when opposing teams do miss, secure the rebound, secure the possession, no second chance opportunities, which if you remember, that's what the Kings and Kevon Looney killed Sacramento with in the playoffs 2 years ago. So those are the three heads of the Kings defense. Fox on the guards, Murray on the wing. You can throw in Keon Ellis in there to kind of be the workhorse defensively as well. Maybe Devin Carter when he's healthy. And then Sabonis grab rebounds. But how physical can you play? Because how are the referees going to officiate the game? That's a kind of concerning variable that we'll just have to wait and see, really.
You think you're the first person that's brought that up in all these team previews. Is you're right. We don't know. We know what happened. We know that they made a switch. We don't know if they're going to keep that going. We don't know if they're going to keep slowing the pace of the games down and stopping calling those fouls. We honestly have no idea. There is a general pattern in the NBA that the season starts off with higher scoring and higher pace, and pace slows down as the season goes on. Last season it was more pronounced, but we don't know. It's going to be interesting to watch, and I think there'll be a lot of talk about it. Whichever way it goes, will they keep it going? I think there'll be a lot of praise for that. But if they revert back, then there'll be a ton of criticism. I do think they might try and stick with what they did towards the end of the season, but again, we just don't know. Your bold prediction, Matt, for this team ties me into the team record because you said they're gonna win 50 games. They're gonna beat the 50-game marker. You think they've made enough improvements from where they were last season to get there. In fact, you're predicting that they go to 52 wins. That is obviously more than they have done in the past. That is pushing them to a upper echelon top 4 in the West position. What is the one thing that they would have to avoid for you to go, yeah, this is probably not going to be realistic for us?
I'm going to cheat and kind of say two things. Well, one is the obvious one, which we can always bring up, which is health.
Okay.
They get, I think more often than not, like the Kings can't survive the loss of Sabonis. They can't. They just can't. Like for an extended period of time. Thankfully, Sabonis basically never never stops playing. Like he played every game last season, only missed a game or two last year with an actual thumb injury and played through it all 2 seasons ago. So that's kind of one, which is the obvious one. Number two is the defense just can't be catastrophically bad. Like, and the offense has to be back to what it was 2 years ago, which doesn't necessarily mean they have to lead the league, because I still expect the Indiana Pacers to be ridiculous offensively. But the Kings just have to be a team that offensively, like you have Kevin Durant going back on his podcast and going, I don't know how the hell we stop that. Like that's what the Kings have to become with the addition now of DeMar DeRozan, or an even more efficient version of that as a 3-level offensive team. So to me, that's it. The reason why the 50 win number, I think is more of the focus for me than the playoff, Josh, because I think they go hand in hand, right?
Yep.
The Western Conference, we won't be surprised at all if the top, or if the 4th seed through the 7th seed are separated by like 3 or 4 games. Would that surprise anybody? No. Like that's what the West is more than likely going to be. So making the playoffs is super vague, because you could make the playoffs as a play-in team, which I think would be disappointing for the Kings. Ultimately, it doesn't matter how you get there, but once you get there, again, if the Kings are a play-in team and then lose in the first round again, how are we really feeling good at that? Now that we're going into 1 year older of DeMar DeRozan, you have a big contract decision to make with both Keegan Murray and De'Aaron Fox. And on top of that, DeMar's only got 2 years left on his deal. Like, are you really feeling comfortable going all in with the rest of your assets after losing in the first round again and being a play-in team? So the 50-win mark is something that the Kings have not accomplished since C-Webb and Peugeot were all here. It's an unbelievably difficult feat to accomplish. I think that is the absolute rallying cry focal point of the Kings this year. Get to 50. 52 would be fantastic. I love that number. Get to 50 and you're in. And at that point, screw home court advantage. Doesn't matter where you end up. At that point, you're securely in the playoffs. Then figure out how to win a playoff series. But 50 is the goal. 50 is the focus. 5-0 is pretty much going to be on the banner of Kings fans this season.
Last question for you, Matt, is just a very simple quiz about the Kings. They have had 38 players in their history who have worn either number 24 or number 25. And we're talking about that because it is the 24-25 NBA season. All I want you to do is name me the first player that comes to your mind that has worn number 24 or number 25 for the Sacramento Kings.
Bobby Jackson, 24, Rookie of the Year. Rookie of the Year, Sixth Man of the Year.
Yeah, he wore that for like 9 seasons or whatever it was. That is
forever.
They've had a lot. I think this is the team that's had the most people wear 24 and 25. But Buddy Hield, Carl Landry when he was here.
We don't remember Buddy Hield. We can forget that. Have fun with him, Warriors.
Yeah, I'm sure that. Oh, mate, you can just go down the road and say hi. Just check in, see how things are going. Alex Len is currently number 25 on this team. They've had a lot of guys, and of course the legendary Darius Songalia wore number 25 as well. Matt, that is it for us. So tell us what's going on over at Locked On Kings, and people can go check out your stuff over there.
We're going through it all together. This is the driest part of the NBA year, but soon things will ramp up. The NBA schedule came out and both gave us excitement for the season and then reminded us how far away we truly are. So keep locked into Locked On Kings, all the Locked On podcasts, Locked On Fantasy Basketball. We'll get through it together, right? Once we hit training camp, prepare for a head-first dive into that starting shooting guard debate. We're going to have a lot of fun with that. And then once we get to the season, man, there are massive expectations in Sacramento. Massive. The internal pressure is far bigger with this organization than the external pressure, and the external pressure is heating up every single day. So this team has high expectations of themselves. I think DeMar DeRozan is going to be fantastic here in Sacramento. I just can't wait for that first game opening night against the T-Wolves, October 24th.
It is going to be cool to see how that all works out. Matt, thank you again for coming on and chatting with about the Kings with me.
Always a pleasure, Josh.
And that will do it for me today. Don't forget, I want to get that thumb on YouTube. I want you to leave your comments and subscribe. You never know what's coming out. We've got two more team previews that we're going to do, and they're coming out later this week as well. Guys, we are done here. Thank you so much for listening, everyone. See ya.